Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Brief. Today, we're very fortunate to have Michael Callahan. Michael's the CMO of Salt Security. Michael, start us off by telling about a little bit about your background and what you're up to currently.
Yeah, sure. It's great to be here, Chris. Thanks for having me on. So background wise, boy, I feel like I've been kind of an engineer by at heart for my entire career. I started actually in sales, which has helped tremendously on the marketing side. Really connecting with like what are the needs or problems people have, and it's something that I've carried for more than 20 years now. But I started as in sales. Went back to school, did an MBA after getting that engineering undergrad, and became an SE of all things. Right, so it's not a typical path to become a CMO is through the SE path, but between the sales piece and the SE piece, it's really helped a lot. And I think one of the things I try to pride myself on is wherever I am, I feel like it's the responsibility of the CMO to be able to demo the product. Like you can't just create interesting campaigns or taglines. You've got to understand the product and how people use it. And I'm happy to say that I've been able to do that at every company, which is probably some of that engineering background coming through, that I have this real interest in the technology. It's not superficial. It's actually real. But I started in I've been in cybersecurity my whole career. Went for sales, SE, and then became less and less technical. Although I still feel like I have some of that technology background. But sales, SE, product management, ran product marketing, and then got into the typical categories within like corporate marketing of corporate and field marketing, demand, channel marketing, all of that. So really the kind of the full stack across all of the marketing functions, including the technical and the sales side.
That's great, Michael. I mean, and some great brands along the way. I mean, McAfee, HP, Juniper, and I'm sure along the way you've learned unique things from each of them. I'm
Yeah.
curious, tell us a little bit about some of the mentors or folks that really influenced your career path, and any advice they gave you that was really super helpful, as well as if there's any that was intended to be helpful but turned out to, not be.
Yeah, there's one, and this is the years ago. This was even maybe 22, 23 years ago. I remember it was one of my, it wasn't my direct sales manager. It was actually his manager. And at the time, we had it set up where you we would call them ride-alongs, I guess similar to like what the police do, but you'd ride along with your manager. And one of the things he said that really stuck with me, and it seems so simple, but I try to remember this as I go through our days. He used the phrase, "Some days you get the bear, and some days the bear gets you." Right? That's kind of maybe this typical like Midwestern sort of phrase. And what it meant in other words is sometimes you have good days and sometimes you have bad days. It's the way it goes. Just get up the next day and go back to work and keep going. And it's really helped me because it's like I think in any of our careers we have those times when it's just a brutal day, right? And nothing seems to go right. And you're trying to make progress. You're trying to push stuff forward and it's not working. And you can't just dwell on it. You got to get up the next day and you start again. And every day is sort of this new, like the counter gets reset every day. And I try to keep that in mind. I think, even though yesterday may have been good or bad, today's going to be different. And you come in with a positive perspective of today's going to be good, and you figure out how to make it good.
I love that. I
Yeah.
actually worked with somebody years ago that said, "Be the dog that catches the car." And he said the problems that you'll face when you catch the car are far more interesting than being the one always chasing it. And I
That's
thought,
great.
what a great way to put it. And
Yeah.
I'm still chasing the car, I feel sometimes, but there's
Yeah.
days definitely where I feel like I've caught it and I'm like, oh crap, now what do I do?
Yeah.
But it's a
Well,
good,
so
good
to that
problem to
point, you
have.
reminded me, Chris, like one of the things that I try to do with all of my teams, and it's like this, um, something will happen interesting when you catch the car.
Yeah.
And I use that kind of that metaphor, in our team and say, just go try stuff. Just try it. It's way better that you try. Maybe it blows up, maybe it doesn't, but you're going to learn something. And so one of the mantras I try to keep with our team is just pilot as many things as you can. If you have a good idea, you want to look at least to the level of it's not going to cause anyone any sort of physical injury, right?
Right.
Or you're going to cost, the company's going to go out of business. But if you have an idea, think about it a little bit. The fact that you had an idea means there's something there. Just
Yeah.
go do it. Go do it
Yeah.
and figure out and see what happens. And you get much further along, but you're going to learn something too. Yeah, we try to do that across the team. And on the whole, it accelerates your business overall if everybody's just trying things. Now, you can't just like say, go try stuff and then don't ever follow through.
Yeah.
But trying things is, it's important and it increases the speed of business.
Yeah, I worked with somebody once in tech. Actually, I was in the agency side, but working with a CMO partner at at the client side, and he said, we've got to fail fast, fail cheap. If we're not
Yep.
pushing the envelope, and how he's having a testing agenda, he says, I learned that from the engineers, and
Yeah.
you can create a test environment, but if you're not putting it out in the wild and letting the actual people use it, you're not really getting the actual experience. And I thought, what a great way to think about
Yeah.
it. And it also, I think, a lot of organizations push for perfection,
Yeah.
and perfection is not what we need. We need like a more human experience where there is some imperfection, but acknowledgement that that's there and that you're working to make it better. And that's a constant battle with, now the pace of personalization
Yeah.
and the way technology is creating different experiences, and our expectations as consumers is changing as well.
Yeah.
Um,
I think you're right though, because I think there was, and I haven't thought about this too much, but we're doing it kind of on the flyers. Like, I think maybe in the past, there was an expectation that anything that people, maybe things that people produced or that you saw was perfect, right? So you think about like commercials and you think these are studio quality. Like this is like, like if you're doing a commercial, it's no different than a movie set. I mean, it is super like, and everything is perfect. And you have people making sure that the balloons are the right colors and like there's not a scrap of paper on the sidewalk you may be filming. Um, I think now people are more, they want it to be more real and they understand that there's flaws in that. And so, if you're talking like me, so I'm talking and I've got to clear my throat.
yeah,
It's okay. People
yeah,
expect it. You don't expect to edit that out. You don't expect, unless it's like hurting someone's eardrums because I'm
yeah,
coughing so loud.
right.
But I think people expect that. And I think they're willing to believe or see that humanity's not perfect and it's okay. As long as you're authentic and that you're trying, I think people respond to that.
Yeah. I've worked in a lot of over the years, worked with a lot of tech brands and a lot of B2B brands just generally. And I've always felt like it was such a rich opportunity to do great marketing because there's so much bad marketing in B2B. And I hate to say that because I think it's, everybody kind of agrees generally. So it's a stereotype that I think we can pick on a bit without being unkind. Um, and, it's, the land of speeds and feeds, right? And honestly, the ability to bring a humanity to it, to recognize the intelligence of the audience and to really honor that,
Yeah.
is a real trapped opportunity that a lot of brands don't do. And being vulnerable. As you work on the stuff that you do, and you've worked on a number of brands in different aspects, what are some of the experiences along the way that you've had that you've been able to do that to bring that humanity, that accessibility, that vulnerability to the tech world?
Yeah. I think it goes back to kind of maybe I'll call it a tenet or a principle that I have is like one of the first things you always have to go back to. Who are you talking to? You always have to do it. Now there's a fancy way of saying that, like, well, it's account based or it's an ICP or is it, but if you just think about who you're talking to as a person, like who is it that I'm trying to connect with? And then think, what is it that they care about and talk to them in that way. I think it
Yeah.
makes it more engaging and more interesting for them, but you have to be vulnerable, right? Because there's like, especially in technology, um, overall, I would say like the IQ of people in technology is higher than the norm,
Yeah.
right? Or higher than the average. So people want to be smart. They want to be smarter than each other. And so they want to like, almost like communicate how smart they are. And that what that ends up being is like dry, descriptive things about like, I don't know, about the product or maybe the service. But I don't know that that connects. And so, but being vulnerable and like connecting with people in a way that they would read something, it's different, right? So you are as a marketer are being vulnerable, by saying something like, um, I'm kind of making this up as we go, but like, um, uh, we know that you've got a million things going on in day to day. What if we could help you remove two of those? What if we could help with two of those? That has nothing to do with any sort of product description, but what I just said probably could apply to 80% of technology
That's right.
messaging, right?
That's right.
Just by saying that.
Yeah.
But it's hard because what happens is you do that, and then you have these all of these inputs across your company, possibly across customers, but maybe less, but across your company, where people are like, well, yeah, but that doesn't explain what the product does, and I just built this feature that does this. Oh, and I've got this way to do. And so you have this kind of battle or tension.
Yeah.
But ultimately, to your point, I think if we can borrow from the consumer side or the B2C, you're going to do much better B2B marketing.
Yeah, the two things we try really hard to stick with are honor their intelligence and have a way to extend the conversation. Don't repeat yourself. There's
Yeah.
lots of programs out there that it's literally the same idea said over and over and over again, and sometimes even the same ads for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And if we definitely want the rational side at some point, but we have to connect. People buy culture and confidence in the people before they
Yeah.
buy a product or service.
Yeah.
And in tech, and it's absolutely true as well. I mean, the decision making process for a CISO is complex, and in large enterprise, there's a couple dynamics that we always think about. A lot of them, the average CISO, it might change their job every 24 to 30 months.
Yeah. Right.
The
Right.
decision cycle for a major tech solution can be 18 to 24 months.
Yeah.
So if you're not building relationships that endure,
Yeah.
you're going to miss cycles that
Sure.
are really important to connect with.
Yeah.
So their buying committee is diverse, right? There's oftentimes academics that are consultants. There are also consultants that are consultants. There's,
Yeah.
board members. It's a big complex ecosystem, and they're all humans with different motives. And yet you have to somehow package, the communications to reach all of them. Um, talk about some of the stuff along your way that you've done to kind of touch other parts of the
Yeah. So
committees.
I'll do that. Let me kind of go to one thing that
Yeah.
you reminded me of something that was, I think that, if you think about the buying process, um, I believe, and I think there's some research on this, but it's hard to prove conclusively. But I believe that people, they buy on that emotion that you establish early on, right? So if I know, Chris, what your problems are, and I have something that can solve it, and you feel like I really want to do that.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, hey, I know that I'm looking in your background. I know that you've got that green light there and you hate green. I think I can help you. I know that you talked about how much you like blue, and it's going to make your day better. And it's I think I can help because we have a way to do that where we can change the lampshade and make it like whatever color based on your, and you're like, oh, that's really good. You understand my problem. And that at that point, and I think this is similar to the B2B side, I think people have made a decision at that point. If they believe you and they believe that you really want to solve the problem, then later on they justify it.
Yeah.
And that's where the other stuff comes out. Well, like, okay, well, how fast is it? And how big is, in this case, how big is that lampshade? And how many wattage do we want the bulb to be on? But that stuff happens after they've made the decision.
Yeah.
That's not the decision process. It's not that. They're really, I mean, sometimes maybe they're looking for a way to, they're looking for something they hadn't thought of that's technically going to like prevent them from doing it, but they're basically justifying way further down. They've already made the decision. They're just
Yeah.
looking for you to give proof or help on, to support their case.
Yeah.
But they'll buy based on thinking, yeah, I believe you can, you can help me.
Yeah, I'll take this now to Salt. It strikes me that you're in an interesting place in that, I think that it's obvious that you need hardware level security, you need software level security,
Yeah.
but how often do you feel like the audience that you're appealing to is aware and thinking about API level support? I mean, I think
Yeah.
it's like
Okay.
the door that nobody thinks about, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's a great way to say it, and it is like a door that's oftentimes completely open, or at
Right.
the very least, it's unlocked, and you just have to you turn the handle. I think what what I've seen happen over the last several years is people didn't pay too much attention to because of maybe because of just the name API, it felt technical and it kind of generally turned people off, right? Like they're an application programming interface. Oh, that's got to be developers. That's really tech. And I think what I see happening more recently is, and some of this is because of us and some of it's other people in the market educating, is people are realizing that the APIs, forget about the technical definition of it. They power everything.
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's becoming more obvious to people. And the example, a real basic one I give, because since everyone seems to be familiar with it, is you think, okay, when you're on your phone and you hit that little app that's Uber to get a car, what do you think happens? Well, what happens is there's a bunch of API calls that go out that say, well, where am I? Is my credit card up to date? Where's the driver? What's traffic look like? Are things on time? Is this the most current version of all of this stuff? They're all API calls that are delivering an experience. And I think what people are starting to realize is APIs are literally powering their business and powering their experiences. And now they're saying, oh, wait, and these can also be attacked because
Yeah.
they're literally carrying such sensitive information. Like the example I just gave, I would have my address. That's pretty private,
Yeah.
right? Or I would have my credit card information,
Yeah.
pretty private as well. And it's a place where I think the bad guys now are saying, they've got to get a return on their time too. So are they going to try to break through a hardened firewall or get through a really secure endpoint? Probably not. They're probably
Yeah.
going to go to the place where they get the best return for their money.
So, tech is the land of acronym soup. One that's in your realm is MCP servers, and there's many, many other. How do you help people connect through the kind of authentic, human context of the things that you do versus getting down into the acronym soup? Because I mean, you need
Yeah.
to acknowledge that on some level, and in the tech detail and the implementation plan, that's important to have all that. But in
Yeah.
communication, how do you keep it about the way you'll feel,
Yeah.
versus the way that you'll rationalize every step?
Yeah. I think one of the best ways is to give people analogies that they're familiar with, right? So like you and I just talked a second ago is like an API is like a door.
Yeah.
So is it open or closed or locked or not? And usually it's not, it's not locked. We'll use, uh, there was something that I introduced, I would say probably a year and a half ago or so, about APIs that seemed to connect with people, because they could visualize it. Cause like, if you think about the main, like security, the big security categories, you have endpoint security, which is
Yeah.
laptop, desktop, phone, server, whatever. Then you've got network security, right? So you got your firewalls, your IDS, IPS. You've got cloud security.
Yeah.
And then you've got this big group of that I believe is a fourth category, which is API security. But
Yeah.
how do you see that? Because like you can see like the other ones, you kind of have a sense of what it might look like. Like even cloud, which is a little more abstract. You still, when you think of cloud security, you think a like a data center with a bunch of servers, and like you still see something in your mind.
Yeah.
So I introduced this idea of an API fabric and everybody has a fabric and it's just different and it's more or less complex and it has more or less risk depending. But that kind of made it real for people. If they started thinking about, oh, so my business overall really is this fabric of interconnected APIs. And it just made it real for people. So the more that we can do that kind of thing, or say, APIs are like the nervous system for your body, people will connect to it versus saying, okay, an API has like a get command, and then it has another part of the API, and then there's a post, and that
Yeah.
it's people. No one's going to connect to that.
Yeah. Have you played at all with in more human ways with like making API stand for about to pry inside, or or anything like that? Have you ever made it more colloquial
We
and
haven't, but I'll try it. I've got a couple of customer meetings this afternoon. I'll let you know, let you know how it goes.
Yeah, it just seems like the way that the hackers look at it, right? It's like, what's their exploit? It could be fun to do that. As you think about the insights you gather that you work to put into briefs or that the team develops, and because I'm sure you do personas and ICP mapping and all
Yeah.
those things, and the pain point analysis, and you've talked about how addressing those proactively and recognizing them is important, certainly. But where do you find, have there been moments in time where you've found things that were kind of off to the side that weren't obvious, that you kind of stumbled upon in a non-traditional way, that kind of informed, work that actually made a big difference or really broke through?
Yeah, I'll give you an example. I was at a I was at a mobile security company, and um we we kept talking about how vulnerable your phone was, and that it could be attacked, and there was little security, and um it was okay, but it didn't feel like we were really landing or connecting the story. And so we turned it, which was it happened. It was part of a like a just a discussion we were having, probably like in the break room or something, right? I mean, it wasn't the intent of it, but what we said was, how much of your day do you think you could do without your laptop? How much of your day could you do just on your phone?
Mm,
And the answers were like 80 to 90% pretty consistently. Like there was a few things that you needed. Maybe there were some custom apps that weren't built for mobile or what, but it was most of the time. And so we turned that discussion to say, well, if you could do 80 to 90% of your day on your laptop, would you think of not protecting it? Would you
yeah,
ever consider not protecting your laptop? And it completely changed the dialogue, and it changed how we talk to people about mobile security, saying it's not just another device that's sitting out there that, you're being forced to put an app on for security. It's literally a computer that you can do most of your work on, which has all of the same data and private information, all that. How could you would never think of not protecting that? And
right.
it changed it. And that was one that we I would like to say that we were like super smart and thought of that, but we kind of stumbled into it as just in a conversation with people.
Yeah, I think, part of the purpose of the podcast is actually talking to people about where they find those things. And,
Yeah,
it's a commonality, and, as hard, as hard as we all work to find the, really brilliant insights, a lot of times they just come out of, happenstance.
yeah,
And that's okay, as long as you're receptive to them and actually, leverage them.
yeah,
And we talked about a couple of different angles on that. In the realm of salt, um, I imagine that because you're kind of introducing a different context to the conversation, right? Because not a lot of people are playing. I mean, there's obviously competitors in the API space, but the the dominant conversation is around the hardware, software, and encryption key, management side of
yeah.
the industry. Um, you know, and talking about that in non-traditional ways, and analogies are really great. Um, when you go to a show, and I know you're coming up on Falcon, and you go to Black Hat and other places. What is your message there, and how do you stand out in the sea of so many solutions?
Yeah. I think there's a couple ways. One is, and we're doing our best to not just put AI on everything and just, as the phrase is, like whitewashing everything with AI.
Yeah,
But it's a really a critical component of AI is APIs, because all the AI agents, the MCP servers, the LLMs, even the A to A from Google, their protocol, the communication between all of those points is all through APIs.
yeah,
And so we talk about that, and we say, so how are you like, how do you know if you have any MCP servers out there? And then that usually leads to, well, I'm not really sure. I'm like, well, we can show you. But the point of me giving you that example is, we always try to start at these shows with, not like, here's what we do. It's,
yeah,
how do you know this? Like, and so like in that example, if I said that someone walked by the booth and we said, you've heard of MCP servers, how do you guys know what you have? And if they say, totally got it covered, everything's fine, we're good, solid, we're like, good, enjoy the show, right? there's a
right,
there's a there's an identity and access company right next to us. Most people don't, though. And we say, well, let's show you. Let us show you what we can do. We think it solves the problem. We're pretty close to what customers need. Let us show it to you. And when they see it, it typically, at least right now, especially on AI, I almost get this sense of relief that people have because there's so much out there that's so unknown and it's so um, 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 unprotected, but also like people just talking about it. But instead of doing it, what we try to do is say, look, we can show you. We can show you where you have this. And they have this sense of relief and like, oh, good. Okay. Let's talk more.
Yeah.
That's what we typically try to do. I mean, because it's to your point, like to stand out at a show. I remember this was years ago, so the number's probably higher now. How do you stand out, like really stand out at something like RSA or Black Hat, even the Gartner's, their Security and Risk Management Summit? It's like $5 to $10 million if
Yeah.
you really, really want it to stand out, because you would have to buy up floor space. You'd have to have acrobats spinning around in the air. You would, I mean, it's nuts.
Keynote. Yeah.
Totally, yeah. You have to buy all the sponsorships to give you the diamond level keynotes. Um, and then I don't know, like afterward, you're like, did they really remember that or not?
Yeah.
Um, so we try to be um, more substantive. I don't know if I'm saying that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still a
Yeah.
little bit early here. Um, but in the conversation with people and try to stand out that way through like this is real. You can trust us. So, we think we can help you solve your problem.
So do you guys have as a like a data point that you engage people with the average enterprise company, the number of APIs that they have in their kind of tech environment? Do you have a sense of what that number is?
So it varies, but here the interesting, it's similar to that, but what we typically talk to people, because it's going to vary. Like you could have a small company with a few people, but they're super app heavy,
Yeah.
and they may have thousands of APIs. What we tend to do is say, how many do you think you have? And they mostly don't know, which is
Right.
kind of scary because that's a point of attack. Um, but even when they guess, and we're like, we're not holding you to this, and we're not charging you for this, but just take a guess.
Yeah.
Most people are off by 70 to 80%. So they're shocked when we do a discovery of what APIs you have, and we come back and say, you said you had 100. Well, it turns out that you've got 1,500. They're like, what? How? Where are they? And that starts the discussion. So it's more like that. That's how the discussion tends to flow.
Interesting. I now have a question. One of our clients is in the post-breach space. And one of my questions for them when I talk to them next is what percentage of breaches are tracked back to API exposure?
Oh.
And I'm curious, do you know that number? Do you have a sense of the actual known breaches, what the API gap percentage is compared to other pathways?
It's growing, I think.
Yeah.
An exact number, I would estimate it. I don't know it exactly, but I would say it's probably in the 30% range, because typically, um, you had the known ones are coming through something that's like a traditional technology, like, oh, it was a fish that
Right.
started it, or it
Yep.
was, someone double clicked on, well, actually that'd be a fish too, but somehow they compromised their laptop. The API piece, I think it continues to grow. It is one of the fastest growing areas.
Mm.
I think there's a lot that people just don't know that it came from an API because the result was something later. Like it was a data breach, but how did that happen? Well,
Right.
they abused an API and then got into a server and then exfiltrated the data out of the server. But the reporting on that is, oh, they breached the server. It
Right.
wasn't. It came through an API.
Right. Yeah. And yet the door is swinging open,
Wide
and
open.
there's another 1,499 that are creaking on the hinges.
That's
Um, yeah, I love that.
yeah.
One of the things you said in your bio that I really found interesting, and I think I know how this kind of came to be, is that you view yourself as a creative mechanic. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah.
What's that mean?
Yeah, I think it's it's this combination of I wouldn't say that I am artistic at all. I think people will attest to that if I showed some of the things that I've tried to write or draw before. But I do think creatively there's this piece of like trying to think about things from different perspectives and then combine that with this, like I think I mentioned earlier on, I have this engineering undergrad, and that was just natural for me. Like it wasn't like forced into it. I just liked to see how things work. And so I approach everything with that mindset. So when I think of being a creative mechanic, I think I look at, and I'll give you an example, our demand gen process. And I think, That's just a system. It's just a system that you can map and measure and monitor. I want to have little analytics everywhere, right? So that we can see how something is running. But I have that mindset of it, and then as you're looking at what the results might be, you say, well, can we approach this differently? Can we do something differently to impact that particular measurement, right? It's similar to a car, and you think like I think of that as a system. It's not just did the car start?
Yeah.
Well, there's fuel and how much fuel is left, and is the fuel injection getting the right amount of fuel versus oxygen mixture, and what's the air pressure tire, and is the air conditioner working? Like these are all little diagnostics that are part of that system, um, which is that mechanic side of it, right, if you will, and then
Yep.
you go on the other side and say, well, how can we look at this? How can we look at this creatively? And let me give you maybe a practice. One of the things I'm working on right now. Um, we're getting we get a pretty good amount of traffic to our website. You can always get more, of course, and so we always try to get more. But I look at it and think the I don't like the number of people that are bouncing, so I don't like that bounce rate. So that to me now I've defined the problem. And so how do I combination of being creative and then as a mechanic fix it? Well, I look at it and think, why are people bouncing? Either they're not getting when they first hit the site, it's not connecting with them, or there's not a reason to engage, right? So like actually engage with us on the site. So one of the things I'm doing that will probably be live in a week or two, a short little engagement like survey, like about APIs, but nothing like it's not a 20-minute thing or even a 10-minute thing. It's literally 15 seconds or less. But something comes up so that you engage and say, hey, do you know how many APIs you have? Like to our point earlier that most people don't. How many APIs do you have? Do you know if you're in compliance or not? Do you think you're being attacked or not being attacked? Just something that gets people engaged. That's the creative side of the mechanics, which the mechanic side was, I need to have people not bounce out.
Yeah.
Well, what can I do that's not like forcing them to engage with me, but that's an interesting way for them to engage? So we try some different creative ways to get them to engage, solving the problem that I had, which is too many people are bouncing.
Yeah, that makes sense. And, expectations on websites are changing constantly. And now
Yeah.
with, AI, all the AI tools, people don't want a dumb search result. They want an active response. And
Yeah.
now websites are being, first of all, you have to make sure that if somebody's using one of those tools that you show up in the right way,
Yeah.
and that it leads back to your site or at least some way of interacting. It's
Yeah.
a much more complex funnel that's looks more like spaghetti thrown on the table than it does a
Yeah.
linear process for
Yeah.
sure.
So I have
Um,
this like, I don't know if it's a dream or vision, but maybe it's a combination of both. That I'm going to put a time frame on it and say within 2 years, let's say
yeah,
that at this, given the speed of how things are advancing, um, you won't have a website anymore. It will, like a standard website, people will look for something and dynamically you will create a website for them or an
yeah,
experience for them.
yeah,
Because like if I think about our site and I'm going to ballpark it and say we probably have 50 pages on our site, right?
yeah,
From different resources to platform to like partners, whatever. Someone coming in, I don't know, 80% of that is irrelevant, right? Like,
yep,
let's just say that they're looking for a partner and they want to find a partner that we've done for whatever. Well, all of the other stuff doesn't mean anything to them. So in that
right,
sense, it's kind of a wasted resource. So couldn't we do something where you created a dynamic experience and there was no set experience? I could totally see that happening, based on what they searched for, or maybe they go to your site and the site is just two prompts, and based on that, it spins up, their answer form. I could see that happening. We're not there yet, but I
yeah.
could see it happening at some point.
Well, personalization is definitely the mad rush, and
Yeah.
frankly, as much as consumers, of every ilk, worry about privacy, we share so much data that it's obscene. And unfortunately, there's a lot of organizations that use it to overmarket and remarket to us. So I think there's that balance of how do you approach people on their terms, and
Yeah.
but I think I look forward to the day when a future campaign talks about how many API doors you lock. I think there's a
Yeah.
the being the locksmith for the API
Yeah.
world be a really interesting proposition.
Chris, you want to
So
hear something funny? So
yeah,
this is like, you talked about customization. I remember this was probably, I'm going to say 3 or 4 years ago. One of the vendors was pitching us on the ability for them to put, in an ad, uh, the, the, the prospect's name, not their like formal name, but their company name.
right,
Right. Um, uh, and we were all like, "Oh, that's awesome. We love that." Cause it comes up and the little banner display says, um, you know, uh, uh, Acme Corporation, you're looking for something, blah, blah.
right,
And we're like, Let's do that." And we did it. And within a week, it was like the biggest problem that like everyone was like, "How do you know who I am?" And that's creepy. You're tracking me. You're like, and so
right.
this idea that was like so cool to personalization wise implemented completely wrong. Right. And it was like
Yeah.
complete opposite outcome of what we wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's, and people are definitely sticklers for that stuff. And good for you for listening and adjusting. Cause I think that, personalization doesn't mean I know a lot about you. It means I'm customizing the experience to what you want.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's the hard part, right? Cause
Yeah.
it gets back to the age old question of, how do you see around the corner? And the reality is consumers can't. Like what they really want, they don't know half the time.
No.
So you can't ask them overtly, and unless it's a discrete purchase, and that's honestly not the sweet spot of growth, because then
Right.
it gets
Right.
commoditized. But so here we are. It's salt's growing. You're doing all these interesting things. What are the things you want to make sure that our listeners hear about what's coming up for salt?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is like, so you can't avoid this idea of agentic AI, right? Or
Right.
using AI agents. I think there's probably still some hype in the system, and maybe people have thought about it like overtaking their entire organization. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be somewhere a little bit to the side of that where it's a little bit less, but everyone's going to use it, right?
Yeah.
Everyone will have these AI agents. And I think the thing that I want people to remember is the only way that those work is through APIs. You can't deploy these agents. You can't deploy them securely. You can't ensure that you're in compliance, that you're not being attacked, that you have visibility into what you have, unless you have API security. They're part and parcel to the same thing. You can't have AI security without having API security because it's the foundation of AIs is using APIs. And I want people to think about that. I want them to remember there's a way to see this. There's a way to see your fabric, to understand where you have risks, where you don't, as you deploy all these AIs for mostly to deliver positive experiences to your customers or your partners. It's all based on APIs, and look at Salt to help you protect that.
I love it. That's right. Well, Michael, this has been a fantastic conversation. Um, Turning back to you specifically, I just got a call from somebody in Hollywood. They're going to do a biopic on you. Tell us what's
Finally,
the, I know, right? What's the name of the film, or who's going to play you, or what's the
oh
plot or
man.
theme?
Uh, okay, all right. So I live in Texas. I'm not from Texas. I was born in Michigan, but I've lived in Texas for 20 years as we've raised our daughters. So I would say I could see Matthew McConaughey playing me, and rather than being known and him being asked to say "all right, all right, all right" over and over in the future, he's just going to say "API, API, API," and
I
that's going to
love it.
become the phrase that everyone knows him and us for.
I love it. That's very, very funny. So, Michael, for those that want to reach out and connect with you to follow up, what's the best way to find you?
The best way is to go to our website. There's a lot of ways you can either connect us, ask for a demo, whatever, or contact us, salt.security. I'm also happy to have you connect with me directly. I have no issue with that. My email is michaelc@salt.security. So it's MICHAEL, C for my last name, which is Callahan, at salt.security. And then also, if you happen to be going to Falcon, one of the biggest security events that's happening in 2 weeks, not next week, but the week after, we'll be at Falcon, and we will be in booth 2018 if you want to stop by and talk with us.
Fantastic, Michael. Thank you so much for being here. It's been a great episode, and with that, we'll wrap up. And thanks all our listeners, and we'll see you next time on Beyond the Brief.
Thanks, Chris.